So now I will give the floor to Ismail. Ismail is in Morocco. He he is the UCAN, always the UNESCO program for youth. He's a strategy coordinator and leader of African Youth Climate Hub. He's a junior executive manager at the Mohammed VI Foundation for Environmental Protection, in charge of the administrative support, production of analytical documents, logistical and financial support for the Prize for the Climate and Sustainable Development of the foundation. Ismail is a former analyst at the Moroccan Center for Strategic Studies and the African Federation for Strategic Study. He holds a Master of Arts in International Studies and Diplomacy, with a concentration on peace and conflict studies from the Hawaiian University. Sorry. For you, to you, Ismail, please. That he will talk also on the actions to empower youth through education for climate.
Thank you very much, Ricardo, and thank you for this opportunity where us young people can share our experience when it comes to young people engagement and when it comes to addressing climate change and promoting sustainable. Uh, the way I would proceed is I would like to share with you our experience with the hub, which will highlight some of the challenges that we are facing in terms of climate action, but also in terms of access to information and so on. So, just to contextualize, the African Youth Climate Hub was launched in 2019 during the Climate Summit. The idea came to build this network in early 2019, and by September 2019, we were able to launch this network. So in a very small amount of time, we were able to create the African Youth Climate Hub. And this happened only by believing in one idea, is that this hub needs to be built by youth and for youth. So these young people were reactive enough and flexible enough to build this network that is now has 6 components, including an incubation program and an e-learning system and a dashboard and an observatory and so on. So when we were building this African Youth Climate Hub early 2019, and once we launched it, we did a survey because we had these components that were empty, and we said that we need to fill them. We launched the survey, so it was about 150 persons responded to this survey, and in this survey we asked 4 main questions. First of all, as an African young individual, what do you need in order to address climate change? Do you have any experience or have been already been educated on around climate change and climate action and sustainable development in general? Third, have you been in contact or have you outreach to any stakeholders such as governments, such as the private sector, for to help you with your actions? And finally, do you have any expertise that you could contribute to for the hub? And so in these 100 and 150 individuals, for the first questions regarding the needs, we realized that not only all of the individuals who answered know how to identify their needs, but they knew exactly what they wanted. And so they wanted one major thing. First of all, they need to know more about climate change. Second of all, they need to acquire better capacities to build their initiatives. And third, they need to be able to communicate enough and get the knowledge to communicate about their solutions so that they can get support. So these 3 elements are very important, and these were highlighted. Second of all is access, as being able to identify their expertise. When it comes to expertise, all of young people that replied to this survey were able to identify at least one element in which they were able to share their knowledge and share their experience. Either their knowledge about climate action, either their knowledge about management skills, either their knowledge about communication skills, either knowledge about financial skills, either knowledge about bringing people together to for climate action. And so that's how we proceeded. So we built our incubation program that is built by Youth and for Youth, that is a pluridisciplinary approach on a 6 month incubation process, where these young people that will be selected for their projects will be able to acquire the necessary capacities in order to build their project, be able to showcase their project, and be able to scale up their project. So we try to build capacity in terms of management, in terms of general knowledge, in terms of law, in terms of finance, in terms of psychology even. And so that's for the incubation program. And we launched our incubation program. Then, when we launched it, we had a problem. Uh, Two main problems. First of all, how are we going to outreach to young people in Africa? What are the tools that we will be using? And what about the areas that don't have access to internet or don't have access to, minimum media tools so that they can get the information? And so we tried to establish a huge strategy. We tried to target radios. We tried to target, um, public media publicities and so on. And we launched also our strategy on social media. And we realized that in terms of traditional way of communicating, is less likely to have an impact than social media today. We realized that in less than 2 months, our platform, through the publicities we did through social media, have now more than 10,000 registered users, African users. And that now our groups on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn have over 2,000 followers. So we realized something. We realized that even when we had this idea of problematics to reach out to people, we realized that people through social media were able to access the information in a way or another. And what we try to do even more is that, as the incubation program is a form to be filled, we try to facilitate as much as possible so that, for example, this individual that will have access to internet for, let's say, 10, 30, or even 1 hour a day would be able to download our form, fill it, and then upload it later on. And so that's how we worked on. And we were able to have more than 200 uh, submissions for our first edition, which is currently in its evaluation process. So that's the incubation phase. Now let's go to the e-learning that we're trying to launch. And based on that survey and based on the different discussions we had, we realized that young Africans have different challenges. And the basic one is the fact that they need to understand what is climate change. We are here between us, and I think most of us have at least did some research and read some articles about climate change. But what we see is that people who are most affected by climate change in Africa and are trying to address this problem don't know the whole concept of climate change and all the challenges and the impact and how their actions could address climate change and promote sustainable development. So that's why we are working on launching our first climate literacy program that we will try to make it reachable to every African uh, young individual in the continent. And so we realized that through this hub and through our ambassadors, since we have 19 ambassadors, that these young people do have challenges to uh, get information about climate change, but they also are doing actions that are addressing, in a way or another, climate change, but also transversally the different sustainable development goals. One of our ambassadors have is CEO actually of an enterprise that is investing that is working in sustainable shark oil. And so, and we discussed with, well, we tried to showcase him as much as possible because this individual is doing a lot of work and is now being really recognized in the country about these actions. And the first thing that was highlighted whenever this individual speaks is that individuals need to learn more about climate change. We don't know what is climate change, but we don't know also the impact of climate change on the local areas. So not only accessing information to get knowledge about climate change, but also accessing information to know the impact that is happening in the localities and in the local regions. Which brings me to another point, which brings me to this expertise of we need data for climate change. We need a lot of data. All over the world, we say that we need data in order to better understand the impacts and better see how the replicability of actions could happen and how we could really scale up innovative solutions to address our issues. But these young people could also serve as data seekers. They could provide data for those observatories, for those research centers, because they have actions on the local areas. We cannot expect to address climate change properly if we do not take in consideration the actions of these young people that are happening in the local areas. And that is where the information and sharing information and highlighting those cases needs to be pushed further. If we show those people what are doing at the local level, and if we show how concrete their actions are and how they're being able to not only address climate change but create wealth, create job opportunities, and also be sustainable with their own communities, this will help scale up their projects, but also help their projects be replicable. So these are the elements that through our experience we realized and think that they're important to highlight. Now, one last thing I would like to end up with is the fact that we all know that climate change is an unprecedented challenge that needs to be addressed. And it's a challenge that needs flexibility, that needs reactivity, and that needs things to be moving very fast and very quickly. And this is where I think that stakeholders, governments, and other actors need to invest in young people because those young people have these capacities. We are flexible, we are reactive, so we need these opportunities. So that's why those stakeholders needs to give young people the chance to showcase their capacities and their capabilities, which so far we are really struggling to achieve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ismail. Really very, very clear, and I think very useful everywhere. I mean, for the other regions we are working on, but also for the north. No, this at the end you mentioned something that fits perfectly well on something we are interested and with that we are moving forward on, which is the need of data. No, that a lot of data is needed, but you link it to the local level because actually we are getting a lot of data from the north of the world. And so this is useless at our levels. I mean, it's useless nationally, and it's of course useless locally. And the same happens about the knowing about practices, initiatives that are taking place. Again, because of the resources and some sort of expertise also, we are getting in the north, well, yeah, they cover green initiatives, really very good initiatives that happen in the United States, France, Germany, and nothing circulates about what happens in your country, in my country, and so on. So that's the sense of this citizens platform that we have launched, and the interest, of course, of UNESCO on this is to go locally to cover practices, initiatives that are taking place, to cover it even in a didactic way, I mean, and concisely to say, well, why did you want to do this? What problems and difficulties you have faced? How did you resolve them? And what are the results that are being achieved? And what is the impact of that? No? So for that, within the Citizens Platform, and again, together with UNESCO, we launched the Climate Change Communication Convergence, which means let's come together. I mean, leave aside the sometimes NGO mentality competition, let's say, because in the end, we are all looking for funding, no? So, but there are so many things worldwide, and particularly in the global south, as now they call us, that by coming together would multiply, and with proper strategy, the dissemination of information, of data, of examples, let's say. No? So I will follow this after this webinar, and when we finished with this pre-COP summit, to try to come together with whoever is possible. This said, I will move to the last of our participants, which is Joy. Are you very happy, Joy? Joy Chiadika, that will talk about waste management, and particularly an experience with children role with regard to waste management. Joy is an environmentalist, a climate change advocate, and a sustainability expert with keen interest in building sustainable and climate resilient communities in Nigeria and in Africa. With experience leading projects in Nigeria, Joy leads and supports organizations to implement capacity building programs to tackle energy poverty, climate change, and environmental sustainability. And in February this year, founded the Community Kid Upcycle Africa initiative to build children in climate vulnerable communities capacity on waste management, upcycling, and sustainability in a creative way, which has so far had impact with 3 communities and over 700 children. Joy currently serves as a coordinator on the ad hoc steering committee of the UNESCO Youth Climate Action Network, the UCAN I have mentioned before, and is the founder of the community. Well, I said that already. So please, if you have some slide or PowerPoint, I was told that each of us is able to manage this webinar and to show it.
Yeah, hello. Thank you
Good.
very much, Ricardo. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been an amazing conversation, exchange of ideas so far. And I mean, I have really enjoyed every part of it. So, yeah, I will just share my screen. All right, great. So to start with, let's talk about waste profile of Africa as a whole, right? So in Africa, the current production of waste, the current production of waste is around 125 million tons of municipal solid waste in Africa, and of that number, only 55% of waste is being collected in forms of normal waste operators that come from time to time to pick up waste, and the people pay bills for them. Only 55% of that waste, that means only 55% of the entire people are actually willing to pay to trash their waste and to join reliable waste management systems. Now, of this number, more than 90% of the entire waste ends up in the streets, ends up in the drainages, ends up in non-controlled dump sites, and others are being burned, releasing greenhouse gases into the air. Now, of this number, we're still on the 125 million tons. About 17 million plastic waste is being created yearly, and of that 17 million plastic, 4% is being recycled. So what happens to the remaining 96%? It ends up in the ocean, it ends up in the gutters, it ends up in the drainages, it ends up in the streets, and harming life on land and life in water. Now look at here again, we have 19 of world's 50 biggest dump sites are found in sub-Saharan Africa. This is really disturbing. Now look at what influences waste generation rates. First of all, let's talk about lifestyle. The lifestyle of an individual affects the kind of the waste generation of the individual. For instance, let's take for example somebody who eats at home more often, more of home cooked meals. Such a person definitely will generate less waste than somebody who eats out more often. A lifestyle of an individual. Now, income levels also affect the waste generation of a particular individual. For more higher income levels, countries and cities tend to have more waste than lesser income level cities and countries all over the world. For instance, Bulgaria, if you look at Bulgaria, the wage generation rate is on the high side. Although it has a lesser population than the US, the United States, you can see that Bulgaria has more wage generation than the United States, which has higher population, about 325 million people than Bulgaria. So another is urbanization. When you see people moving from one terrain to another, you get to find out that you find more waste generation. So now, regarding waste management and climate change disinformation, why do people feel like waste management is unrelated to climate change? Why do they feel like, oh, how I manage my waste is my business, especially in Africa? How I manage my waste is my business. I can decide to wake up in the morning and just burn it. I can decide to just, wake up in the morning and throw it in the gutter or throw it in the river. Or when rain is falling, we know this one is very common. People will just pack their waste and throw it in the flood. Like the waste in the first place was what was causing the flood, and then you come out and then pour your waste in the flood. This happens a lot. We all see them, and we can testify to them as to people, as to those of us here that are joining in from Nigeria and other parts of Africa. So why do people act like that? Why do they feel like climate change is none of their business, or climate change and their waste is not? So some people actually feel, first point is they feel that it is an unrelated topic. Oh, okay, climate change and waste, how does it concern me? How does climate change impact waste? Oh, definitely it has nothing to do with weather, right? That is one myth that must be debunked. Now, another is the individual waste, zero impact. Oh, okay. Well, my waste, considering all the waste in the world, this my little waste would definitely have little or no impact on the environment. It's just so I think I saw an article. I was reading an article some time ago, and in the article somebody said, "Oh, I mean, it's just a plastic. It's just one bottle." So said 7 billion people. It's just one bottle. It's just one plastic, right? I mean, next time I'll use a reusable. That is exactly what 7 billion people said, and then released one bottle into the environment, and then we have 7 billion plastics lying on the floor. So exactly, so we think that, oh, okay, it's just my single waste, right? And it has little or no impact. So these are the misinformation and, disinformation on climate change and waste management. But to tell you, they are totally interconnected. They are totally interconnected. Now we want to look at how waste is connected to climate change, right? Climate change, waste is connected to climate change in so many ways. Now, first of all, we want to talk about the production, the transportation, and the production of the materials that it eventually turns into waste. Now, we begin with the single-use plastic. The production and processing of single-use plastic releases a lot of greenhouse gases into the air, and then it still ends up on when it ends up on the streets. When it ends up in the gutters, it tends to release a lot of toxins, especially when it is being heated by the sun. So all those toxins, all those emissions that come out when during its production, during its incineration as well. The production and incineration are the two major ways that plastic tends to release greenhouse gases into the air, and now it begins to affect the climate such that it makes the planet hotter. So one might not exactly think of it in its usage form, but in the production and incineration of plastics, and also post usage, it releases lots of greenhouse gases. And greenhouse gases, as we know, are a major cause of climate change. The major causes of climate change is the carbon dioxide and the methane. Those are the major greenhouse gases that contribute to climate change. And you might just say, oh, okay, greenhouse gases. Waste is connected to climate change. Amazing. But okay, so how do I begin to look into these topics and manage my waste much more efficiently. Another way waste is connected to climate change is through the anaerobic decomposition of of inorganic of organic waste, sorry, through the anaerobic decomposition of organic waste, right? So um when organic waste is being put together, and then there is no air let into the waste, right? It begins to decompose and then releases a gas called methane. And you know that methane is a gas that is highly a high contributor to climate change. Now you want to wonder, wow, methane, okay, my organic waste, oh, okay, my other plastics are they're releasing gases and worsening the climate. And when this happens over time, it affects the atmospheric condition of the planet. It affects the atmospheric condition of a particular place at the point in time. So another way again that waste affects climate change is connected to climate change is when waste is being burned, right? When you burn your waste. In Africa, we find a lot of people, because they don't want to pay for waste, they don't want to pay to manage their waste, they don't want to pay to waste service operators, individual operators to be able to, manage their way in a more efficient way. They get to gather their waste, commingle it. Commingling means like different kind of streams of waste, right? Putting them together and begin to burn them, releasing lots and lots of emissions into the air, right? This is another way waste is connected to climate change. Okay, so talking about private solutions, now this is a problem, right? It is a problem, waste management and climate change. I mean, they're interconnected. We can see that so far. So what are the solutions that we have been able to do? What are the things that we've been able to contribute to reduce this challenge, reduce this problem? Now, this takes me to exactly the story of my founding the Community Kid Upcycle Africa. So the Community Kid Upcycle Africa initiative was an initiative I founded in February, where Ricardo mentioned earlier. So it is basically teaching young children from the grassroots level. As you can see in the picture, that's the picture of the Community Kid Upcycle we had in April this year. So teaching children from ages 5 to 15, 16 as a benchmark on sustainable waste practices that you see holding in their hands. Those are the inner the inner part of tissue. So when you finish the brown part, the hard part of the tissue. I don't know if you understand. So like when the tissue is finished, that part is practically useless, right? So we use such kind of waste to upcycle. We teach the children to transition them into sustainable waste practices. We teach them on climate change education. We teach them on sustainable waste management. We teach them on sustainability itself, and we teach them on waste value, the value in waste. And we are particularly focused on children who are in climate risk communities. So we so far, like you said, we've been able to go to 3 communities and reached out to over 700 children on upcycling. So when we upcycle, we do really creative upcycling, engaging the children to have fun, upcycling with different materials and making amazing crafts. So that is a private solution from my side. So we've been able to teach children to be able to enculturate them, to have this consciousness at the back of their mind, to know that waste is useful. So not all waste is waste, in quotes. That's the hashtag. Not all waste is waste. Waste is valuable. So following the third Community Kid Upcycle initiative project we had in Lafiaji community, to be precise. I received a feedback from one of the parents. This is just one of the feedbacks I received. And this time around, there was a picture of the parents that took a picture of a child that was actually trained, and sent it to me that, oh, okay, this is one of your students teaching her younger sister how to actually upcycle waste. She was using bottle caps, because we deal with bottle caps and so many other beautiful ways to teach her younger sister. And I was super wow that, okay, so this is actually allowing for a sustainable transition, of young children from the grassroots level into better practices and to protect the people and the planet. And even as they grow, they get to impact other people around them and the younger ones as well. So basically, you can see some pictures from what we do at the Community Kid Upcycle project. That is with bottle caps. We also do some tree plantings as well. This was from the picture above is from the first one. Then the picture below was from the third one, I guess. Yeah. So that's like a few of what we've been able to do from the Community Kid Upcycle project. And the goal, like I said earlier, is to actually do this to enculturize young children, to be able to take climate change very seriously from a very young age, because a lot of these children do not have access to information on climate change. They do not have, in fact, they hear it for the first time from all the projects we've had. They hear it from the first time. Oh, climate change. Oh, what is climate change? They ask me, and they're like, okay, So I try to break it down to the barest minimum, and this has been consistent. This has been consistent. So they don't get the opportunity to learn about it in school. It's not in the curriculum, and that is another challenge we are having. Climate change education should be included in schools curriculum. That is the public sector. So regarding public sector solutions, I would suggest that they should, regarding COP26, when people come together, nations of the world, there should be concrete actions. There should be concrete decisions, and not just making decisions, to be actually act on those decisions made. For instance, I know that Nigeria is party to the Kyoto Protocol. I know that Nigeria is party to the what's the other one now? But as I speak to you right now, there is nothing, little or nothing being done. We heard when Ohum here was speaking. She said something about, when it comes to the government, it's actually the reality of things. Nothing is actually being done. So we sign treaties, we sign agreements, we sign declarations, and then all of a sudden we're still having to go around the same circles. There's no improvement. Look at the Department of Climate Change. Look at the Ministry of Environment. I'm currently in Lagos right now. The Ministry of Environment in Lagos, they get to organize from time to time symposiums, workshops talking about climate change in Lagos. They don't get to do any concrete action to actually lessen the effects and impacts on people. There's lots of coastal communities in Lagos State. There's lots and lots of climate risk communities that are already feeling the impacts of climate change in their communities. But what do public sector do? They don't get to do actual any actual action. There's no evidence. There's no work being done. There's no serious work being done. It's just, I don't know if you understand when I say for the gram. You see them taking pictures, talking about the reports they did and all of that. I mean, there's so first of all, the curriculum has to include climate change education, because climate change is a very serious issue that is going to be affecting the younger generations even more. It is not us that caused this problem. I mean, the younger generation, even the ones younger than us currently, they are not the cause. They are not the cause of this problem. It is actually the older generation. It is actually the older ones that have caused this problem for us, and we have to get it right. Now they have to fix it. At the government level, they have to make them understand that they're actually living in danger, and the sooner we act, the better for us. And then condition their mind. There's something called a paradigm shift, such that they begin to act sustainably from their levels. So that is the idea of the Community Kid Cycle project. So they begin to act sustainably. So what am I supposed to do? What am I not supposed to do? The child from school learning about climate change and being exposed to these things, they get to understand that, okay, I'm setting up a business. I'm already 20 years old. I'm 18 years old. I'm setting up a business. How can I make my business people and planet friendly? They do not ask that, what is climate change when they are 20, like in 15 years from now. They're asking, okay, so how can I actually make what? Hello?
What happened? We hear you.
Oh, okay. I thought somebody was going to say something. Okay, so they're not asking what is climate change. They're asking what can I do to actually help the planet? How can I take up, make the economy greener? How can I,
Yeah.
inculcate sustainability in all of my practices and all of my actions, in my business, in my job, and set up opportunities for other young people to be able to plug into driving a circular economy and a zero waste system.
Mhm.
So that is
Good.
exactly what I have so far. And
Yeah.
thank you very
Wow.
much for having me.
Well, thanks to you, you have a lot, huh? Really. I mean, it's very clear, very useful. I would ask you if your program, I mean, the program you implement with children, if it could be share, and so we share it in other regions in the world, because in many places they are facing a similar situation and willing to do something very specific and that shows to be effective. No, shared with you with Ozzy and Paula, because I have to move right now to the South Asia webinar that starts in 10 minutes. And in that case, there are 10 people participating, so it's going to be like challenging. So what we will do with this, I mean, we will keep in contact. As I said at the beginning, for us, this is a start-up of something. I mean, COP gave the opportunity, but we want to continue. Thank you again. It's been a great pleasure, and really I learn things, and that's very good. Hmm?